You're listening to the Business Communicators. And now your hosts, Austin Stepp and Thomas Bain.
Welcome into the Business Communicators, the number one podcast for marketing, communications, and business comms professionals. My name's Austin Staton, alongside Thomas Bain, my co-host, on this first episode of 2024. And, we went on a little hiatus. We all need a break at times, but we're back in 2024. And Thomas, when we first got into the green room, I was just wearing an Astros Nike shirt, and I saw you wearing a sport coat, and I was like, I can't be upstage. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, we're both wearing sport coats. Thanks for classing up the joint a little bit.
It's easier to dress down at a moment's notice than to dress up. So if any of our listeners wear a tuxedo into their office, please send pictures of us, aka Jim from the show The Office.
Yeah. I don't think any of us or listeners are probably wearing tuxedos into the office. I think it's gotten a little more casual over the past few years, especially following COVID-19 and working from home. And I think that trend is only going to continue moving forward.
And as business communicators, I think that we also need to be mindful of our professional look. I know when I moved to Houston 15, 20 years ago from Austin, going from a place where T-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops was business professional, to Houston, where if you were not in a suit and tie, like you were going into like IBM with the classic black suit and black tie, it was. And so I've been enjoying watching Houston become a lot more casual, for lack of a better statement.
Yeah, I feel like Houston has always been somewhat casual. I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day. So when I used to work in sports, for college basketball season, for example, we would show up to the games in suits. We had a tie, everything. The coaching staff all wore suits and ties, and COVID really changed that. Now you're seeing coaches just wear pullovers and jackets. They're not wearing. It's very rare now that you'll see a head coach and their coaching staff wearing suits now along the baseline. All the media workers who were previously wearing suits are no longer doing so. So I think that trend is one that I am fully behind. Although, a little sport coat, never a bad thing. And, for me, I'm kind of wearing one that looks like maybe a pattern that the famed Paul Bear Bryant at Alabama would wear. Maybe that's in honor of Nick Saban announcing his retirement. So we know that like 35% of our audience is not based in the US, but for context, Nick Saban is the most successful college football head coach of all time. And I don't think there's any debating that. And his, legacy is just insane. He retired this week. So we won't really spend time on that. But yeah, this is a shout out to Alabama, I guess.
I was going to say Bear Bryant, the old coach from Dallas is also another one that kind of comes to mind.
Oh yeah, Tom Landry.
Yeah, with a hat. But again, as business communicators, it's always good to dress nice, for lack of a better statement, or know your audience, I guess would be a more appropriate statement.
Yeah, while I was working at BP, a lot of us that were on the PIO, so public information officer rotation, if you weren't wearing a suit or business type clothes at the office, a lot of folks actually had stuff in their car, like a tie in their car or a dress shirt in the car, just in case something came up and they had to go on camera. They'd be prepared. If you hadn't shaved in a few days, some people had shaving kits at their desk. So that's interesting as well. Just the preparedness side of things, how you should always be forward thinking and not be unprepared if something were to happen. From a crisis perspective, a lot of people have go bags ready to go in case you need to hop on a plane and be somewhere within 4 hours. So it's just really interesting. I think preparedness is a crucial foundation for a lot of us as comms folks.
Absolutely. I know when I was at the hospital, I had a suit that hung behind my door, even though I was in polos and slacks more often than not. But I could throw on a sports coat or take it to the next level. And to your point, the go bags. But that does bring us to as
let's drop the social medias first. The social media handles.
Oh, social medias. Yeah.
If you don't follow us already, be sure to follow all of our content. Just search @BizCommunicator on all the social media platforms. You'll find us there. You can also subscribe to our website, thebusinesscommunicators.com. We post all the show notes there. Share, like, pass along to a colleague, show ideas, shoot us an email. You can email me, Austin at thebusinesscommunicators.com, or Thomas at thebusinesscommunicators.com. We love feedback. Definitely feedback. So Thomas, in terms of feedback, I want to get into some feedback from an episode that we recorded in early 2023. We
About a year
made
ago.
Yeah, it was I think we recorded like late January, early February. I think we were a little bit late to our full year predictions. We
Yes.
said that we would revisit at the end of the year, and just due to scheduling conflicts, travel toward the end of the year, it didn't really make sense for us to sit down and have this conversation. So we wanted to make sure that we did that in our first episode of the new year in 2024, and we will be providing our 2024 comms predictions in an upcoming episode. So stay tuned for that. But I thought it would be great for us to kind of review what we said and what we got right, what we got kind of right, and what we just absolutely whiffed on. And for those interested in hearing the full conversation that we had last year, I'll go ahead and link it in the show notes below so you can go back and listen and, give us our props, make fun of us, whatever you want. That's fine. We have thick skin. So, Thomas, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, let's go.
I don't know if you recall all of your predictions, but I went back and listened to them.
Four of them, I think.
You said you had 5, and then you
Okay.
went to 4,
Okay.
and then you kind of threw out a 5th one.
Yeah, I do remember that. I kind of back into
Yeah.
the 5th one.
So let's start with your first one. You
Okay.
said propaganda will continue to grow in 2023. I think we can say that's a win.
I would 100%, and I would say that it's going to continue.
Hey,
And
save
and
those
it's
predictions for another episode. But yeah, I mean, talk about 2023. I mean, that was spot on.
yeah, and between Ukraine and Russia, what's coming on from there, uh, political, how much I don't like to talk politics, but every politician has their own spin on it, and eh, I just hope as business communicators and anybody who's listening to our show who's a professional understands that propaganda is not good communications. It does serve a purpose, but it's not good communications. And don't fearmonger. And that's basically what propaganda is fear mongering.
Yeah, don't do it just for the clicks.
Yeah, what were the other big propaganda pieces? I remember Russia / Ukraine. Then you had Israel versus Hamas, which is a political nightmare that's also taking place.
Yeah, I think those were the 2 big things. I will say that, love it or hate it, X or Twitter, whatever you wanna call it, the one thing that I like about their platform now is the community notes function where,
That's a good one.
essentially have fact checkers on the website, and there's a system of, like, voting, I guess, on whether the information is correct or incorrect. And I think for the most part, it provides great context to tweets that are misleading or providing misinformation. But at the end of the day, sometimes that misinformation spreads like wildfire before it's ultimately corrected. And most people just go with what they see first, not what the most accurate information is. And I think that's something, kind of an important lesson that we really tell everyone, on a constant basis, is that it's more important to be right than it is to be first. And it's very dangerous sometimes if you have false information and you report it as fact without knowing the full truth.
Yeah, and we'll continue to see what happens with the lawsuits from there. But I'm also excited to see that Snoops is coming back. They did a hiatus, and so reading between the lines, it looks like they're trying to get their ducks in a row and come back to do a lot more of the fact checking.
Ducks in a row. More info to come on that
Yes.
in a few months. This a little teaser for you there. Your second prediction, Thomas. Companies will start taking social media more seriously. And in the context that you're referring that to was regarding, layoffs and, people uh, going on to social media and sharing their personal experience from inside the walls. And um, I don't know that there was any set KPI or anything for that, but I think your take on people continuing to go share inside the walls was accurate. That happened. I'm not sure that companies necessarily did anything to mitigate that. But so I'll give you like a partial grade,
Yeah,
like a
I'd
half
almost
point, half credit.
I'd give myself a C minus, maybe a D plus on that
Hey,
one.
C's being degrees.
Hey, and D stands for diploma.
As you can tell,
But
we're academic stalwarts here.
yeah, exactly. But I think that the internal comms groups and chats definitely happened. I think that companies, even with big tech layoffs and things like that, either offered enough of a severance package or a silence package to keep it from really going from it. And as the economy continues to change, I get the feeling. I do see companies starting to spend a little bit more money in social media for outreach, for lead gen, but I don't see them like truly saying, hey, here's a pile of cash. Yes, your big ones will always do it, Nike's, Adidas's, etc. But I don't see a lot of the smaller companies. It's like, oh yeah, we do social media.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying is a little bit, but not enough to really turn the tide of anything.
Yeah. All right, your next prediction. AI and ChatGPT will make a bigger splash than we care to admit. I think you nailed that one. I mean, I think AI only became probably the biggest story of the year for communications professionals, for a lot of businesses. How we work with it, how we interact with it. We saw lawsuits that took place. The New York Times suing OpenAI toward the end of the year. For how they're getting content, how they're scraping content from the internet. Yeah, I think you nailed that one. Some interesting things there that you said is that you spoke about bots writing sports journalism. There was something that I wanted to bring up. There was this a platform called BNN Breaking, and I think we've had this conversation offline, but I'll go ahead and share it for a lot of folks. If you're not familiar, BNN Breaking is a website that is kind of like uses AI to scrape the internet. And what it does is you'll have authors on there that publish, 1,000 stories over a 3-day period. Um, and the problem is they get picked up by like Yahoo, they get picked up by MSN, and it shows up in the clips. And I think that's problematic. And there's no way to correct that. And yeah, I think we're only going to see more of that in 2024. So maybe that's a little bit of a prediction for 2024. We'll go into that more in depth. But man, you nailed that AI and ChatGPT.
Well, you also forget that the CEO of one of the biggest API drivers, or AI drivers, not API, AI drivers, was let go and then rehired less than 72 hours later because of the board.
Yeah.
And a little teaser going into it. I do think that we're going to continue to hear about AI. But what I'm starting to see, as I was actually at a social media breakfast with a past podcast guest this morning, talking about talking about AI in your social media, and I think and part of the topic is how many different companies are embedding AI into their tools. Zoom has an AI function. All of your CRMs have AI functions now. I think we're going to continue to see that grow, but I'm still intrigued at how it's going to affect the content creation outside of, full disclosure. I've used it to get over writer's block. Hey, give me a blog post on this. Hey, I need
great for inspiration.
Social media on this. Yeah. Give me 3 points, and then I pick one and I doctor it up and make it mine. So it's going to continue. AI is here to stay. It's just, let's keep using it for good, not evil.
Yeah, absolutely. And your last prediction, the economy will still be a big story in 2023. That'll play into all the above scenarios that you had already mentioned. So I'll give you credit there. I think the economy was a big story. We saw layoffs happen, of course, and budget cuts, interest rates. Nobody knew what the Fed was going to do. So so you had 5, or no, here's one more prediction that you had. Work from home. You said people will start being forced back into the office. Companies must be careful how they communicate it. I think people are being forced back into the office. So I'll give you credit on that one too. So
I'd give myself a solid B on that one.
All right. So you've 5 predictions overall. I think you did pretty solid.
I do too.
I think your predictions were spot on. You didn't have any glaring misses. I mean, I think that's a growth.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of cheated on the economy is being in B2C and marketing sales for so long. Political realms, when they start their campaigning for who's going to be the next Democrat nominee, Republican nominee, whatever.
Right.
They start feeding and pumping in the stories, whether it's good, bad, cherry picking what they want to show. That's there. But then also there's some other economic warnings. And if only I could learn my finance side of it, then, we would be sponsored by such and such. And the background would be a beach, not just the blue screen beach, but an actual beach.
That would be nice if that happened. All right, let's get to mine, Thomas.
All right. So your first one up was Snapchat goes bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I still feel strongly that that's going to happen eventually. I will say that I think when we recorded the episode, I think their share price was around $11 to $12 a share, but that was down significantly from where it had been. And if you look at from the time that we're recording now to the past year, so about 13 months,
yeah.
um, their share price is up 72%, which when you're playing at that low of numbers, it's a huge swing. But when you look at Snapchat overall, like their stock price, um, they're still not I mean, they're still down from their peak. I mean, their peak was $74 a share in 2021. And they've been hovering between that $9 and $16 range for really the last like year and a half. So I still think Snapchat is going to be one to watch, but I miss the bankruptcy part.
You did miss the bankruptcy part, and you called me out on, it's up 72% since when you made the projection. I'm like, yeah, but $4 to $6 is
Yeah,
not that
exactly.
much.
Exactly.
Considering, you look at some of the big boys on there. Uh, and I haven't really followed them as much to know what they're doing behind the scenes on that one. So I kind of give you a good effort. Here's your gold
Good effort.
star,
I'll
but
take it. I'll take
but
it.
not no, you didn't get the passing grade on that one. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Your next one is TikTok is ultimately banned in the US, and
Yeah.
as tensions are higher.
Yeah. I thought that would happen. I thought there would be a federal ban. I think we were kind of leaning that way, especially as the
Mhm.
congressional testimony took place in March. There was a lot of momentum for that to happen. Um, although it wasn't done at the federal level, we did see it at the state level. Montana became the first state to actually pass legislation banning TikTok on all personal devices that operated within the state lines, and you couldn't download the app from any of the app stores. So Montana did it. When you look at like as of April of 2023, I think 34 of the 50 states announced or enacted bans on state government agencies, employees, and contractors using TikTok on government issued devices. New York City in August of last year banned TikTok on government owned devices for security reasons. You look at universities that have banned TikTok. I'm just going to go through a few like Arizona State, Auburn University, Clemson University, McLennan Community College, shout out Waco, Texas. You've got Oklahoma State, Purdue University, the entire University of Houston system, University of Florida, Texas Tech University system, Texas A&M, University of Texas at Austin. University system of Georgia. So while the federal government didn't, we still saw bans tick up. It's not quite a full prediction, right? But I have partial credit, right?
Yeah, I gave you full partial credit on that one. And,
Okay.
that was one when you made the prediction there. I was like, with the
It
advent
was a
of
bold take.
VPNs, everything
I,
else like that,
I was going for bold takes. That
you,
was my
you,
thought.
you
Maybe I need
definitely
to
were
be more
swinging for the fence on that
measured.
one.
Maybe I need to be more measured like you for my
But
2024 predictions.
I definitely will give you, a good partial credit on that one because, like you
I'll
mentioned off
take it.
everything that it does, and I know you barely scratched the tip of the iceberg of people who have banned TikTok on their company work phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
your next one. All right. If we just kind of read only the first part of it, then I would give you a failing grade. But the second part of it,
No, no, no.
you knock it out of the park.
When I sent you the notes, the prediction is just the top line that I sent. The bullet
The
points are for my
streaming
reference.
saturation will be a big story.
Yeah,
Um,
home run,
I was going to say
home run.
you definitely hit it, especially as the cost of streaming, the cost of production, the cost of everything else is going up.
Yeah, I mean,
Streaming services, Peacock, you have Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, etc.
yeah, it's nuts. I mean, the cost of streaming services has never been higher. We saw price increases from like Hulu. We saw price increases from Disney Plus, from Netflix. Netflix ultimately kind of changed the way they do things. Amazon announced that they were increasing their prices and that they were also providing an option if you want to continue to get no commercials on the platform. So, I think that's when I think people are getting tired of having to have so many subscriptions. I know that when you're listening to this episode, the NFL playoffs will have already kicked off, no pun intended. And on Saturday night, the Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Miami Dolphins in a playoff game, and it's a huge game. Taylor Swift will likely be there, and the game's on Peacock, a streaming network, and a lot of NFL fans are not happy about it.
Well, and really to put it in perspective is as you put it on there, crucial games. Um, Axios wrote an article and it's been picked up by everything else on Forbes, and it's talking out of the top 50 shows, top 100 watch shows, all but like 6 of them are
NFL.
NFL football, and 2 of them are college
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
And so
Sports is the only thing keeping traditional cable alive. Period.
and it always will be. It always will be. Until they can figure out a way to stream it only on their network and charge us a fee to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, spot on, home run, A plus 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 plus.
I'll take it.
Great job. All right, this next one, Axios and Houston Landing, local news. More storytellers tell the news.
Yeah. So that one, I said that this is more one to watch. I said that Axios had just launched a Houston newsletter, and they were doing that throughout the country, and they continue to roll out newsletters throughout the country. Then I also mentioned Houston Landing, which was an upstart nonprofit
That's what I was going to
paper.
say.
Yeah, it was a nonprofit paper here, and their whole mantra when they started was they want more storytellers to tell the news. And I think 7 of the 9 first hires that they had were former Houston Chronicle reporters. And I'm going to say I really nailed this one. And the reason why I say that is just because of news that happened this week, actually, with Houston Landing specifically. They fired their editor in chief and their Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist. And I think we're going to discuss this more probably in an upcoming episode. I would like to
Yes.
speak with a few folks that have been impacted. But if you are in Houston or throughout the country, I would really encourage you to follow the story. It's absolutely fascinating. The Washington Post had a story on it this morning, on Friday morning. The Texas Monthly has covered this quite extensively. Their current CEO, who as of Thursday night has full support from their board, suggested that their paper is basically a newspaper on a website. And I guess in a team meeting this past Monday morning, he said that he wanted to see more videos and articles on the website. And I don't even know if he looks at their own website because a lot of their articles are accompanied by videos. They it's just insane the stuff that's happening, and more information is coming out right now. I guess Houston Landing has like $20 million of like seed money that was used to start the paper. And you fire a very well respected editor in chief, and then your top star reporter that has won a Pulitzer for investigative journalism and put out incredible work this past year, you exceed all readership expectations that you had. Man, that's a blow to the credibility for the newspaper. And I think it's going to give caution to some of these upstarts that are trying to create these nonprofit papers that are started by foundations and billionaires. It's just interesting.
It is very interesting. And I think another little article I wrote was from the fired editor in chief that said, he was told me that we wanted to be more digital. And he's like, we're digital only. How does that make any sense? And on the other side of the coin, you have other places like The Athletic, who went out and hired a bunch of really top-notch sports reporters, and they're doing pretty good, I think, without seeing behind the books.
Yeah, they've had a few layoffs, and ultimately, I think their play was to get acquired, and they did get acquired by the New York Times. So I think it was a win for them. But the thing about these upstarts like The Athletic and Houston Landing is they pay more than your traditional journalism job. So you have the ability to attract and retain talent as a result of that. But, with the news that's happening right now with Houston Landing, it's going to be very difficult for them to attract and retain talent moving forward. I'm actually going to read a piece right now from the Washington Post. This was written on Friday. It says, for more than an hour on Monday, staffers told Bhatia, who's the CEO, that he had undermined Houston Landing's mission, comparing the chaos of turmoil and layoffs they had experienced at newspaper chains such as Gannett. And one reporter questioned his pronouncement that he would start participating in meetings, suggesting that the CEO's presence would violate the traditional boundaries between editorial and business decisions. Bhatia, who's the CEO, said, do you know who I am? seriously, do you know who I am? I've been a journalist for 50 years. I have 10 Pulitzer Prizes. I've been editor for half a dozen newspapers. Man, I mean, it just seems like it's utter chaos right now, and he has no support from the entire newsroom. So, when I said that was one to watch in 2023, it was one to watch in 2023, but boy, oh boy, has January 2024 really taken off. So I'm going to give myself full credit for that one, Thomas, because we recorded the episode in February. So February to February, I nailed it.
I would give you full credit as well, and we've always been proud supporters on this organization of local news, just because that's really where you eat, live, breathe. That's what you need to be worried on, is the local news. And so, yeah, I give you spot on credit. I think it's going to be interesting to continue to watch this going forward, as we move forward. All right, your last one.
All right.
Meta takes a quiet pivot away from the meta price or metaverse.
Yeah.
Metaverse.
I think I nailed it. I think I nailed it.
Yeah, I would say too. With share prices going up.
I don't think they fully got away from the metaverse.
No.
But I think they quietly pivoted away, because if you go back to COVID in 2021, that's all Zuckerberg was talking about. I think he saw in 2022 the rise of OpenAI and platforms like ChatGPT, and I think that's kind of where their focus shifted a little bit toward. I think on the product side, with the MetaQuest, the partnership that they have with Ray-Ban, for those glasses, I think that was huge for them. I mean, we saw share price up 173%, record sales for ad revenue, and I think AI actually became the top priority for Zuckerberg. Now they're not going to fully move away from the metaverse. I mean, we saw the interview that he did with Lex Friedman on the podcast. I think it was in like October of 2023, where they had like avatars that were having a conversation. They were using like the headsets to see and interact with everything. That to me was fascinating. But yeah, I got to give myself credit on that one.
I give you credit. I would give you credit. As close to nailing it as you can. I think some of the pivot of it also took place from all the other stories that were kind of taking place that were kind of eating it up, with the AI kind of eating some of it. But yeah, you mentioned quietly, so that's why I'm giving you a lot closer to nailing it than it is. And they've renamed everything. So I know if you go in and buy ads on the back end of Facebook, Instagram, you're basically buying in Meta. And whether Meta is a physical or a virtual place to talk, or if it's just a landing page, it's the central hub for all you do, through your social media posts with Sprout Social or anything like that. Hey, let's post it on Meta, and it goes to all the other channels. So yeah, I give you credit on that one as well.
So overall, I think you nailed yours. You had 5 predictions, 4.5 predictions. I mean, the economy was more just a statement, but I think it was a factual statement. I had 4 predictions. Snapchat goes bankrupt. Partial credit-ish.
Circling the drain, maybe.
They didn't fully recover. TikTok bans in the US. I mean, wasn't done federally, but we still saw bans, so partial credit. Local newsroom, nailed it. Meta, nailed it. Streaming saturation, nailed it. So Thomas, I think overall, I mean, I don't know if there's a gambling market for comms predictions, but if there is, stay tuned to our next episode where we unveil our 2024 predictions, because I think we did a pretty damn good job.
I think so as well. And I also want to tell our listeners that as we were talking about share prices in publicly traded companies, we weren't going back and looking through their notes or anything along those lines to say, okay, they have a payment of X number of dollars coming up to say this is when the bankruptcy is going to take place, like the financial advisors do. So yes, with our notice as communicators, business communicators, and how to do your job better, you should listen to us, because we can tell you what's going to happen and what channels you should focus on, what channels you should watch, what channels you should just completely ignore.
So here's what we're going to do for our next episode. Thomas and I are going to have 5 predictions each on the comms marketing side of things. And we're going to give our predictions. And then we're also going to use ChatGPT to come up with 5 predictions of its own. And at the end of the year, we'll compare. We'll see who was more accurate, Thomas, myself, or an AI bot. It should be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. All I got to say is that Nate Silver, if you're listening to
Hmm.
us, you should be hiring us and at least sponsoring our show because we're obviously able to predict as well.
We should actually get him on the podcast. He, since he left 538, he's launched a Substack that he puts out like a newsletter. I think it's multiple times a week now. It's called the Silver Bullet. It's pretty good content actually. So if you don't follow Nate Silver, on social media, I would highly recommend that you check out his Substack. He, I think in his latest one, he announced, that he's really going to focus on his newsletter for 2024 year or the 2024 year. And it's not the Silver Bullet. I lied. It's the Silver Bulletin. So check that out. He's working on a book, a new podcast, of course, election modeling, sports modeling. He's been really involved in like gambling over the past year. He's focusing on media appearances, and he says this. Uh, he wants to do more speaker appearances. So he's got an email. Reach out to him, see if he wants to do it.
And if one of our listeners happens to know him or can use one of the social media platforms to reach out to him, please, we'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, let us know how we did on our predictions. Was there anything that we missed? Anything that we could have done better? I think we did pretty good, especially since we're not necessarily in the forecasting model. I don't know. Maybe we should put our that on our LinkedIn. Prognosticators. I don't know.
I'm for it. Hey, I'm gonna go update my LinkedIn. 4.5 out of 5 predictions in 2023 were right.
Yeah, we'll probably accompany this with like some sort of article or something like that. But yeah, if you want to see it, check out the businesscommunicators.com. Follow us on social media at BizCommunicator on all the platforms. We're there. Thomas, any parting thoughts? I know we're about 32 minutes into this episode, and we kind of just wanted to give a refresh on 2023 and check in, see how we're doing. We wanted to show off our sport coats, even if I didn't know that we were going to be wearing them today.
I feel like we're on the podcast of the European football. The two jackets, or I'm completely going blank on the name of it. I'll have to go back and find it and put it in the show notes.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. Let me think of it.
We are in Texas. There's the Arctic blast that's coming through. And something that kind of irks me more than anything is I want the information. I want the relevant information. I actually read probably more information than I need to read. But at the same token, at some point in time, you get information fatigue. Texas with the Arctic blast is coming down. We're going to have highs where we are in the teens one day. And if you go back 2 years ago when we had the big freeze, 3 years ago where we had the big freeze and people passed away, unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of notices from ERCOT. And I saw a lot of notices over the summertime from ERCOT. And it seems like every hour I'm getting a new tweet, X, whatever they're calling themselves now, or I'm getting a new email, or I'm getting a new news alert bulletin. ERCOT does this. And I'm like, I'm getting apathy on emergency prep. Austin, you're a crisis comms person. You're a media relations person. What are your thoughts on the right amount of preparation? Preparation, really. Once the event happens, you can't communicate enough, but preparation communications. Hey, what do you need to do to make sure it's relevant? And so I just wanted your opinion, just because it's a bone I want to pick because I'm so sick of hearing about ERCOT.
Yeah. So first off, to your point, the podcast is Men in Blazers. So yeah, that is us right now. It's really interesting because that's something that a lot of people are talking about. If you actually peruse Reddit or social media, a lot of people are saying ERCOT this, ERCOT that. I'm not so sure that um, the notifications from ERCOT are necessarily higher than they were pre-Winter Storm Uri. I think they're getting more attention now post Winter Storm Uri because of the fatalities that happened. I think there were 246 people in the state of Texas that died during Winter Storm Uri. I think that was the official tally. Maybe that's not Texas. Maybe that includes Oklahoma and Arkansas, but the number was significant. Um, Grid stability in Texas has been a concern. It's aging infrastructure. We don't have the ability within the state to pull off of uh, you know, other states like every other state in the union can do. I think that a lot of times reporters are just looking for stories and what's going to drive clicks. And I think when you bring up ERCOT, grid instability, blackouts during the summer, brownouts during the summer, and then potentially power failures and grid failures during cold weather, I think those are stories that are going to drive headlines. They're going to get people to click on websites. And I think part of that is a little bit dangerous, because if you continue to cry wolf when the big one does hit, I think people maybe are not going to be as prepared as they should be. Um, that's why I actually encourage people that are in Houston to follow reliable sources. And for me, that is Space City Weather. And we've talked about Space City Weather a lot. We had Matt Lanza on our show last summer to talk about hurricane season. He is a huge part of Space City Weather. Him, Eric Berger, Maria Sotolongo, they do an incredible job of hype-free forecast. And if they say something, I'm going to listen to them. If I see something on the local news stations, I'm maybe going to take it with a grain of salt. If I see something on Reddit, take it with a grain of salt. If they tell me to jump, I ask how high. If they tell me to be prepared about something, I will be prepared. Yes, here in Houston, we are expected to have cold weather next week. It seems like it's not going to be as dangerous as it was in 2021. I think the term Arctic blast or polar vortex or whatever you're hearing, some of those terms are sensationalized. Um, so when it comes to crisis management, I think ERCOT needs to do a better job of messaging. Getting their messages out there, not just talk about grid instability, but like provide these newsrooms with what you need to know. They need to educate these journalists. They need to be having background conversations with these journalists and saying, look, I get away from the fear mongering. Like, that's not going to help anybody in these situations. We have full confidence in our system. It's backed by natural gas, backed by wind power. Here are the differences between what we're expecting in 2024 versus 2021. I mean, 2021, we had ice, we had snow. I don't think we're expecting that next week. I think it's just cold temperatures. So I think the messaging needs to be better from ERCOT. So I would imagine they probably have consultants that are helping them, because I think if you're not getting out in front of the message, you're letting other people tell your story for you. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more on these media outlets. And that's why I think these platforms like Space City Weather and the iWall, which are run by Matt Lanza and Eric Berger, I think those are incredibly important to follow. But not everyone knows about these platforms, and I think that's where those issues come in. So I will say this, just from a preparedness standpoint, we don't deal with a lot of cold weather here in Texas. We don't have the infrastructure for it, but we do deal with hurricane season, flooding. My recommendation for all of you, and this is the same with communicators, right? If you're a crisis communications professional, likely you have a go kit. You've got your PPE, you've got your hard hat, everything you need in a bag. So if you have to go to the airport or go to a disaster site, you can just grab it and go. I think that's important to have for storms like this. Make sure that you have a large battery pack. I personally have like an Anchor Power Hub. It was expensive, but it's something that can keep all of your devices charged for several days. It's something that can keep your flashlights charged, any extra lights that you have. You can get a small like conduction stove cooking for you. Have food, have water prepped. I think these are things that you should have year round for any type of natural disaster that could occur. Because you never know when something's going to strike, and I think it's best to be over prepared, but don't panic.
Yeah, don't panic is definitely rule number one in anything. Like, I know when I was teaching my kiddo how to swim, I'd push her in fully clothed and teach her not to panic and then get to the side. I think one of the things that you forgot is remember a change of clothes and remember your pets. Is have 1 or 2 days worth of food just in case.
Yeah, and wrap your pipes.
Preparedness is definitely it. The official count is what I'm reading was 246. I think you said two.
I said 246. I know that. I know that because I looked it up the other day, actually, for a conversation that was similar to this. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's funny as you mentioned that about the backdoor channels. I'm like, I would probably support government spending money, Texas government spending money for ERCOT to basically have a 2-day conference in Austin or wherever their headquarters are, and call every single media person to come in just as a meet and greet, for lack of a better statement.
I think the problem with ERCOT is it's a very small staff. I don't know if if number is correct, but if I remember correctly from 2021, the total employees that ERCOT has is very, very thin. I want to say in 2021 it was something like 10 people. Um, so I mean, they're spread thin, and so they have to have like third party support. That makes it tough from a college perspective if you're spread thin.
According to Rocket Reach, ERCOT has 924 employees.
Okay, maybe it's their board that has 10 people.
I think their board has few people. But again, and going long time ago, we were talking about the CDC with the pandemic and how many times they botched the communications effort. I think it's one of those things, and we talk about this all the time on it, is don't forget your communications person in the room as you're doing your planning. Don't forget your communications person walking around the building, because they can help you kind of craft that plan and say, nope, this is what you're wanting to say. This is not how it comes out.
Yeah. I don't want to really get into this, but we go back to the COVID thing. Anthony Fauci this past week talked about the 6 feet social distancing, and he said that it just sort of appeared. It was likely lacked scientific basis. That's what he publicly stated. And there's going to be some case studies that are done years from now on the communications efforts behind COVID, and I totally understand where the health officials were coming from in terms of mask, vaccines, social distancing. I think they had good intent behind a lot of this, because you don't want the virus to spread. But I think years later, when the information is coming out that this stuff wasn't based in fact, I think that erodes trust. It erodes credibility. So when there is another pandemic that happens, people are going to be far more skeptical. And, they might say, oh, COVID wasn't that bad. This didn't actually happen during COVID. And then sure enough, with the next virus, it does happen and it becomes problematic. And so that's why I think it's very, very important to kind of balance that messaging, because trust is the most important thing. And if it erodes, especially during a crisis scenario like a storm or a pandemic, that's when the loss of life increases, and that's not a good thing. That's never a good thing.
Absolutely. And we've had Edelman on and the trust barometer. Build the trust. I'm going to applaud Fauci for saying, hey, this is what it was based off of. Just give a little more story. Hope the media actually covers the back ends of why you're doing those things. Keep the trust up. Companies keep the trust up.
Yeah.
Government keep the trust up.
And don't sensationalize things for clicks. That only creates more misinformation, creates more propaganda. People could weaponize that information. It's just not good. Just share the facts. Don't editorialize it. That's just my take.
Read more than the headline. But we've beat that. We've done that several times.
If you're listening to the podcast, 44 minutes into it already, I imagine you already read more than just the headline. So kudos to you. Let us know what you think. It was fun to get back on the microphone, Thomas, and to have these conversations. And hope you enjoy the NFL Super Wild Card weekend. Hope you stay warm, and I look forward to chatting very, very soon on our 2024 predictions. We're gonna see how we do against ChatGPT. All right. Well, if you want to follow our work, just search Business Communicator on all the social platforms. Again, you can follow our website as well. Subscribe to it, share it, businesscommunicators.com. Well, on behalf of my co-host, Thomas Bain, my name's Austin Staton, 2 Men in Blazers. See you next week with Business Communicators. Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.